in the quiet hamlet of Bickington, nestled in the rolling green of South Devon. The villagers lived by the rhythms of the seasons, ploughing fields in spring, harvesting in autumn, and gathering by hearths in winter. But there was another rhythm, older and more spectral, that stirred unease among them, the daily walk of an old lady's ghost, her plaid shawl trailing behind her as she wandered through the lanes, bound by a wish unfulfilled. Her name in life had been Agnes Harrow, though few spoke it aloud anymore. She'd lived out her days in a modest cottage at Coombe, a wooded hollow just beyond the village proper, where the trees whispered secrets to the wind. Agnes had been a familiar sight in Bickington's mall and stooped. Her plaid shawl of faded green and blue wrapped tight against the chill, her steps slow but steady as she made her way to the market or the church. Known for her sharp wit and sharper tongue, she'd kept mostly to herself after her husband passed. Her only companions, the roses she tended and the robins that sang at her window. But Agnes had harbored one deep desire, shared only with her closest kin, when her time came. She wished to be buried beneath the ancient yew tree in St. Mary's Churchyard, where her parents and grandparents rested, their graves marked by mossy stones smoothed by time. When Agnes died in the winter of 1873, her wishes were ignored. Her nephew, a practical man with little care for sentiment, saw no need to honor her request. The new plot by the Lenneal do, he'd said, brushing off the protests of her few friends. So Agnes was laid to rest in a corner of the churchyard, far from the UAE, her grave marked by a simple wooden cross that bore no trace of her beloved plaid shawl or the roses she'd loved. The villagers shook their heads, muttering that such disregard would not sit well with a spirit as stubborn as hers. They were right. It began the very next day. At dusk, as the light bled gold across the fields, a figure appeared on the lane leading from Coombe to Bickington. It was Agnes, or what remained of her, her form pale and shimmering, her plaid shawl draped across her shoulders, just as it had been in life. Her steps were slow, deliberate, tracing the same path she'd walked countless times, past the blacksmith's forge, along the hedgerows where blackberries gleamed in summer, down the cobbled street where children once played. She carried no lantern, spoke no words, but her presence was a weight in the air, a quiet sorrow that turned the evening chill to ice. Every day thereafter, at the same hour, Agnes walked. The villagers learned to mark their evenings by her passing. Old Tom the baker would pause his sweeping as she drifted by his shop, her shawl catching the last light like a faded banner. Widow Greaves would shutter her windows tight, whispering prayers as the ghostly figure crossed the lane. Children, bolder than their parents, dared each other to follow her, but none ventured far. Something in her hollow gaze warned them back. She never lingered, never strayed from her route, her steps carrying her through the village and towards St. Mary's Churchyard, though she never reached the yew tree she'd longed for. Instead, her form would dissolve at the church gate, as if some unseen barrier held her from her true rest. The years turned, and Agnes's walks became part of Bickington's fabric, a ghost as familiar as the church bells or the bleating of sheep. Some pitied her, leaving sprigs of rosemary on her neglected grave as a token of peace. Others feared her, claiming the roses at Coombe grew thornier since her death, their petals streaked with an unnatural red. A few tried to right the wrong. Old Parson Mead once blessed the grave with holy water, hoping to guide her spirit to rest, but the next dusk she walked again, her plaid shawl fluttering in an unfelt breeze. Time softened the edges of fear, but Agnes's ghost endured, a daily reminder of promises And though the villagers grew accustomed to her presence, they never forgot the lesson whispered in her steps. Some wishes, denied in life, will echo beyond the grave. On quiet evenings in Bickington, when the shadows lengthen and the air grows still, you might still catch a glimpse of her, small and stooped, her plaid shawl trailing behind, walking the lanes as she did in life, bound forever to a path she cannot leave. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, follow, subscribe, and comment below.